Andoma da dinde pe zawno le ya ngaro dile some shy.
I'd like to begin by offering my welcome. Good morning to everyone who has come.
Da dile ya da tangbo dile ya ngene ba tagena ma dis shuishan tumdo ma dis bantuation tumdo.
And I think it would be best to start by just reading from the Jewel Ornament of Liberation.
Chanju de semge pe ni de chansu cheba de chansu ma cheba wa thambula ni de membe semge pe ju be semge pe thambula ge de tiba chembo chuben yuwa da chanju sembe laba samje gi den yuwa da digwa samje zen jebur yuwa da la me be chanju gi za subur yuwa da sonam ba du me ba thobur yuwa da sangye samje nyebur yuwa da simje samje la pembur yuwa da nyurdo ngombar zum sangya wa yuwa wo.
The benefits of developing bodhicitta are of two types, the countable and the uncountable. The countable benefits are themselves of two types, those arising from aspiration bodhicitta and those arising from engaged bodhicitta. The first are eightfold. You enter the Mahayana. It serves as the basis for all other aspects of bodhisattva training. It helps you eradicate all misdeeds. It helps you plant the root of unsurpassable merit. It helps you gain incalculable merit. All of the Buddhas are pleased, all beings are benefited, and perfect Buddhahood is swiftly attained.
Tela tangbo xena, kane chanju chogo simji ma gena dedra, jeba pisun soba de den, tiba chim kongsu mi chu la, tiba chimbru ma chu na, zoba sange mi tobo. Kane chanju ki simge ba na, tiba chimbru chuba yino, chansa le ye simde, gema sa lona mebe chanju tiba chimbru shuba yin di xie sun so.
The first is explained as follows. People's conduct may be the very best possible, but if they have not given rise to bodhicitta, then they have not yet entered the Mahayana. Without entering the Mahayana, Buddhahood cannot be attained. A person who has attained the bodhisattva mind becomes a Mahayanist. Thus it says in the bodhisattva levels, as soon as one has generated this attitude, one has entered the great vehicle to unsurpassable enlightenment.
Dadim Dadang Aju Gabdilia Sundiadi Teresha Karza De Gabdilia Tatamude Tibuchimo Subin Juazade Tizin language Jugo Chus Simge de Tizin language Jugo in Swadi Tunadi.
And so what this passage is describing is that if you arouse bodhicitta, then you are brought into the Mahayana path. What this is saying is that this is the gateway to enter the Mahayana path.
Tandona Tijin Simgi de Gula Gawa Zamgi, Chushin, Gula Gawa Madebar, Rani, Tatiwa Chimbru.
What this means is that once you have developed the Mahayana resolve, then without depending upon any other causes, this cause itself is what brings you into the Mahayana, and it is therefore the gateway to the Mahayana path.
Tiba Chimbo Yin means and the Simge, member Simge, Gul de Made, and the Nijigi, that some Yawasha Imbre.
So what this means is that whether or not we are Mahayana practitioners, depends upon whether we have the aspirational bodhicitta within our beings or not. This is what distinguishes, or this is the basic level of entering the Mahayana.
야, 가시에게 니지 셴보디 티젠랑고 주고 인수하는데 용데 유스래. 이내 급들려야지야. 참섬 니지 셴보 송하대다. 안티고 셴보 가서 심게니 고아 지랑과 섭시 니지 셴보디 심게를 고고하로. 된대야 용데 유스래.
Sometimes it is said that great compassion is the gateway to the Mahayana path. But I think that this is intending that great compassion means the same thing as the Mahayana resolve of bodhicitta.
남경아도 기부름딩 타숨시에 거돌리야. 기부 첨부 이민사디 안에 니지 첨부 율레 대마된 거는 샤고레스. 안에 다 티버 첨부 이민사디 심기 율레 대마된 거는 샤고레스. 이제 기부 첨부다 티버 첨부 디스
So often when we speak of the three types of persons, the greater, middling, and lesser person, whether one is a greater person is said to depend upon whether one has great compassion in one's being. But whether one has entered the Mahayana or not depends upon whether you have the bodhicitta within yourself. And so here I think there is a distinction being drawn between entering the Mahayana path and being a greater type of person.
너는 기부 첨부 임비 칠룩대다. 티부 첨부 임비 지기 칠룩르부디 시제 자는 지구 임비 소리다. 간다. 지 심게 야첨부. 단 너는 지 심제 말루베 지 가르다 디도기 펜바단 대화 그래도 내게 디도기 체도 승구를 낸 통에 내게 개인쿠르 통에 개인쿠르 누나 나도 지금 전부를 적용하래 된 개인쿠르 뭐누나 근데 지 칸에 지 전부 인슬라바 좀 시기에 전부 전부 적용 말했어.
But fundamentally, the way that what makes great compassion great and what makes the great Mahayana great or the bodhicitta great is fundamentally the same. It's a question of the scope, the vast scope of the resolve. If we have the resolve that we want to bring benefit to all infinite sentient beings, that we want to bring them happiness and free them of suffering, that we want to bring benefit and happiness to all of them. If we are able to take that responsibility and shoulder that responsibility ourselves, then that is what makes it great. If we are not able to, then even no matter how great the words we say, in actuality it is not great.
멤버십이죠. 상계 토벌인데 로면은 전주 선배 라바시죠. 수림 순부 개원 내배 되면은 상계 토벌인데 로디 수림 순부 개신 내배 샘들 라베 대인노스 장살레게 샘게 같은 전주 선배 라바남기 대인이 제송소.
For the second, it is explained as follows. If you do not have aspirational bodhicitta, the longing to achieve enlightenment, you cannot generate and sustain the bodhisattva's training consisting in the threefold moral discipline. However, if you do so aspire, you lay the very foundation for what is achieved by first adopting the threefold moral discipline and then training in it. The bodhisattva level says, giving rise to this attitude is the basis for all the bodhisattva's training.
다들 말씀사대 전주선 라바 탐지기 대인 수마다 말씀 뭐라 전주선에 수림수부 기계 말라 당부 기계 말에 바로 내 말에서 죄송해요 그래.
And so this is saying that aspirational bodhicitta is the basis for all the trainings of a bodhisattva. If you lack the aspirational bodhicitta, then you will not be able to develop the disciplines of the bodhisattva, and they will not remain if you do.
가리 묘세 만년부채 아니 전주스미 예주도에 수림 차르도바 배나 gelong도 dom바르지 냠베이비나 어느 묘세 만년나 안다지 튜 가르에 야고 dom바짠네 내야여지 지당기 수수답에 나눠래야 아니 gelong dom바지소 가르에지 pamba chungbu yimina ane pizum soba jiki yangar ji domba nyeme da ji karu pizum soba de ji la me ge jire ina chenju sembe ge denu de ju na lo le ya mesi manyam na ane za ji den ge chung ne ge long domba ja de le ya ye ba chi le sung ye bi mra da den zo de kora mesim ge top senen ran mesim de yebe tulu nubanu de imra.
So if we have not lost our aspirational bodhicitta, even if we end up violating the discipline of refraining from wrongs, such as the bhikshu vows, then if we have the aspirational bodhicitta, then we can still retake those vows. In the pratimoksha vows, with the bhikshu vows, for example, that once you have incurred one of the 4 defeats, then you will not be able to take the vows again in an excellent and fault-free, perfect sort of manner. However, if you have, in the scriptures of the bodhisattva levels, it says that if the aspirational bodhicitta has not decreased, has not been lost, then even if you have broken one of the vows, you can go to a representation or support, and you can retake the vow. And so this is said to be the power of the aspirational bodhicitta, or it's the potential or the capability or the power of the aspirational bodhicitta.
Tena nyembo jana mi so sabre jo chuni tedaya tene tude meshi dijenum kisi chigin ebra sigburche je sung so.
The third point is that virtue is the remedy for former wrongs. The best of all virtues is the bodhisattva mind. By bringing this remedy into play, all adverse factors will be annihilated. Thus one reads, "This, like the fire at an eon's end, incinerates great wrongs in just an instant."
Ta digba jidangi digbe nyembole ya ji top shi sungo ba top shi sundu zane da top shi nan dengi top paji chanju semde en dengi top gi nan chodu gyoba de ji sungo yobra.
So the antidote for the misdeeds is the 4 powers. So what this is saying is that among the power of support, aspirational bodhicitta is the greatest of these powers of support.
Shive Tuanxiana Simjingi Gu Sashitabola Chamiji Lendan Dreshi Chanju Gisem Zawa de Tsuna Chanju Chogu Sunju Zedungi and the Geshi Zoba Sangi Jumen Sangi Simjingi Pendant joined. Tena Chansim de Gena Sangi Zawa Subayino Chansalega Simgebaten Lana Mevand of Zoba Chanju Zawa Yino She Sung So Tadendona.
The fourth point is that when the moisture of loving kindness and compassion saturates the ground that is the mind of a being, into which the root, the mind set on enlightenment, has been well and firmly planted, then the branches full of these, the 37 factors conducive to awakening, are developed. Once the fruit, perfect Buddhahood, has ripened, great benefit and happiness will arise from it for all beings. Thus, when the bodhisattva mind has arisen, The root of Buddhahood is firmly planted. The Bodhisattva Levels says, the awakening of the Bodhisattva mind is the root of unsurpassable, pure, and perfect enlightenment.
ngaba sonam badu me ba thobar gyone pajin gi shiben dole chanju sengi sonam khade jele su nam ge khan gyungan thene de la ba ju she sung so dadi ko sonam gi chane chebi na ne be nang ga de nya ba thok yes ange ma thi ji na thong so ane sonam de de tho waras chanju gi sem de nya ba ina digba ya nang ga de nya ba thok res and the new just sung sha je za da ko phin de yin mi ni ga
So that point is that it is like a seed. The fifth point is that immeasurable merit is obtained. The questions of the layman Viradatta Sutra says, whatever merit there is of bodhicitta, were it to possess a form, it would fill up the whole of space and extend well beyond its bounds. So this is saying that its merit is equal to space. Now I also have seen in an instruction manual that I read once that the merit is like this, but the dangers or the faults of it are also the same. If you therefore, if you commit misdeeds, they also become equal to the sky. And so this is describing both the benefits and the dangers.
Pajingi shiben dole, kange sheme changi, sange shena mikang, rinchen tage yonga, dishi namna pyo, kange tema jargi di chanju doni simdiyo na, shobandi ne kebarba, tela tani majisu she sungso. Dumba, simjen tamjela pembar yuwa chigedo, paba dongbo gyoben dole, jidema tamjela pembe, tenda wo she sungso, geba nyudong ombar zoba tsang gyawar yuwa ne, changsale semdi gyana tani la minedi nyudong ombar zoba tsang gyawar yuru she sungso.
The sixth point is that it pleases all the Buddhas. The same sutra says, if someone were to fill with jewels as many Buddha realms as there are sand grains in the Ganges and offer this to the Buddhas, the offering of someone who joined palms and inspired, joined spine and aroused compassion, joined palms and developed the resolve to enlightenment would be far greater, for it does not have any limit. The seventh point is that it will benefit all beings. The marvelous Array Sutra says, it is like a foundation because it brings benefit to all beings. The last of the 8 points is that one will quickly become a genuinely perfect Buddha. It says in the Bodhisattva levels, once this resolve has arisen, one will dwell in neither of the two extremes, but quickly achieve truly perfect Buddhahood.
안주 베심게 편이 주대 ngama gebe dindo randu gyuja su jungwa da shendu naso su jungwa de la tangbo ne jube simdi gen ngarda midra de rani ni ge lokam gewar kyudam ba me vrchadam de la sobe kyu tamje de sonam gi gyu shuk gyu ma cheba jungwa yin de dra ya ju le simde anda la yo ba tene sun ni lokam ba me gyu ge sonam gyu mi cheba tu ma ji nang nya ba ra ju she sun so shendu naso jungwa ne simje nam gi dungen ne se dewa ne drup 뇨몬반에 제바데 대드라야 주주래 가시 대외 풍바도 동해마데 대달 대와 군기 심바다 동해 탐지 주지 띠무자네 세제 대다 기순 갈라요 텐데시게 갈라요 손놈 된다 갈라요 제 숭소
The benefits of engaged bodhicitta are tenfold. These are the 8 mentioned above, along with you deriving constant benefit, and 10, it accomplishing the welfare of others in all kinds of ways. The 9th point is that once this commitment to bodhisattva practice has been undertaken, unlike previously, the flow of merit will be uninterrupted in all circumstances, even when asleep, unconscious, not being especially conscientious, and so forth. The way of the bodhisattva says, The moment this mind is adopted, from then on, whether the person is asleep or remains idle, a multitude of merits equal to the expanse of space will befall him with their force uninterrupted. The 10th benefit is that it will dispel the sufferings of beings, bring them happiness and sever their afflictions. The way of the Bodhisattva says, "How could there be comparable virtue to that which sates with every pleasure, which severs every suffering and also dispels delusion? For those deprived of happiness who've multitudinous sufferings, how could there be such a friend as this? How could there be such merit as this?"
장수 마시반 딘네 손네 상계기 발기 웬데나지 조인데 장기 밀랑어 전주기 쌤데 더위 니미니 손데 예배에 로도하다 예배 신주네 야바다 예배 사선바를 유리로 더바고 내가 당보네 담점마루데 심게 샤나 심진 류버를 손에 대남명에 손도겨 대달에 주죠 가데 대달 담진에 레기 두브로 마진에 심제 대답 끊으면 다근로 어진들유 셰 송소 예배 신주미니 바네 지게도 내들 되는 중교는 심정군기 되는 제 송소 사토바를 유린도 도바는 지게도 지들 대달 동화도 안 되는 전주 심도 된 바다 거래긴 되잖아 사토바를 유린도 제 송소.
The uncountable benefits are all the qualities that emerge between the adoption of bodhicitta and enlightenment. They are beyond calculation. The harmful consequences of abandoning bodhicitta is that it is a damaging thing, because those who abandon it will be reborn in states of suffering, impair their capacity to help others, and delay considerably any achievement of the bodhisattva levels. The first of these is that by not fulfilling the bodhisattva promise and abandoning the commitment to enlightenment, a person is effectively cheating all beings. Rebirth in states of suffering is the consequence of such deception. The way of the bodhisattva says, "If now that I have made a promise, I don't accomplish the task, I will have deceived all sentient beings. What will be my destiny?" The second point is that the capacity to help others is impaired. If such a thing should happen, the welfare of all beings is diminished. The third point is the delay in achieving the levels. As it says, those who alternate between strong lapses and strong bodhicitta will continue cycling in samsara and experience serious delay in attaining the bodhisattva levels.
다드네 말씀게 처리 교사만 배다지 동규리스 송도아 동규리스로다 계심으로 차디 유산에 아는 그 선이 제리아 쉬는 적면도 삼정도.
So here, after this passage, it describes the causes for losing cultivated bodhicitta. This is primarily talking about the causes that cancel bodhicitta. These are quite important, so I think that I will describe these in a few days. Excuse me, I'll explain it later, perhaps in half an hour after the break.
아니 다디 마시다 선이네 송데 아니 뭐 송거진이야 스링메기 그 스링메기다 초아 수아도 심래 나니네 송데 근데 송요래 한 달로 있네야 못튀네 송아도 심래.
Starting from tomorrow, we will, for 3 days, we will have the Tseringma Puja. We started this last year, and we will continue this year.
That's all the 아주 가르에다 스님이 저같이 금세인데 장주지 주매기 대리술이야 지 긴중이네 주매기 긴중이 대 다신 개바다 안에 시주기에 자와탐지 안지 김해 루유주바 다들 아직 주 미를 지 장세 제브레
The primary reasons for doing the Tseringma Puja is so that the community of nuns, the Sangha of nuns, will be able to flourish and expand, and so that they will have no impediment in accomplishing all of the tasks of listening, of study, and of practice.
다치당게 스링마데 이제 평함경의 때마중이 있어야지 다 간다 female goddess somewhere 표 롱바디 숨겹체게 데데다 라모 중이 다 라모 지고 말을 라모도 루모도 좀 안 보셔래 간다 전에 중이 예대에 나한다 조언을 지레 송도와 안에 다나 신기 데 지주밀레베기 때네 나의 때바디 미나는 위버때마다 미만인게 나는 좀 스리민 짐버도스에 가나네 간다 공기 때바디 때 미나네 위버때마 순주산 감보베기에 때바디 징그레스 미만인게 나네 좀 스리미기 게 때바디 징그레스 제자다 미다 미만이 니게기 때바디 버순 주산 다디나네 저 스리마데 밀레주기 짐베다디 가르베 드레인 유산에 다디 개발을 봐봐도 또 차리요래
Tashit Tseringma is one of the 12 Tenma goddesses, or the 12 Tenma spirits. The Tenmas are female goddesses or spirits who protect the land of Tibet. Actually, they're not all goddesses. There are goddesses and Naginis and so forth. In any case, Tseringma is the principal among them. Likewise, Milarepa also said that among humans, the one who would uphold his teachings is the teacher from U, and among non-humans, it was Tseringma. So in saying that the one who would uphold his teachings among humans would be the teacher from U, that meant, or Central Tibet, that meant Gampopa. And Tseringma means Tashi Tseringma. So she is the primary one who upholds his teachings among non-human beings. And so because she upholds the practice lineage of Milarepa, she is a superior and extraordinary goddess.
미다 미만이 니갈 템바데야데 상계 겁네 템바 셰쇼게 겁네 총임스라 뉘에 나로래야 안다지 상계 템바데 템바데산버디 스마르베다 술한테고 공네 공바 셰베 거돌이야 아니 밀레테고도 할테고도 공연도 산에 밀 지불을 때나 미디 아니 세통하레스 제가 안 때문에 유린도 내서 말했어 아니다 할 때고 공도 산 지불 때비네 할때 밤에 봐 지금 뇌연리아베 지거를 가로 롱제네 여기 밤에 봐 이미 유산 뒤주세 때나 지불 때문에 때나 말이부터 제가 달라도 미니갈 때문에 할 수 있는 거라. 제가 미나네 저기 아주 내려 유순천 버려야 때문에 때문에 계속 수가서 두신 거래. 다드네 미난 가서 미마인 베나네 개버셔 대시리아 안 때문에 때문에 수나 진짜 가서다 랭게로 지 나이 버래. 어다들이 뉴스다네 미드 미만이 뭐니가 때문에 때문에 시주고 겁네. 총대가 되듯이 임라.
Actually, entrusting the teachings to both humans and non-humans is something that started at the time of the Buddha. It says in the Vinaya that as the Buddha was considering whom he should entrust his teachings to, he thought, should he give them to humans or should he give them to the gods? If he gave them to the humans, because humans have short lives, then the teachings would not be able to remain for a long time. But if he only gave them to the gods are careless. Because they are always enjoying sensory pleasures, they grow careless. And so it would not be right to just entrust it to them. And so he entrusted the teachings to both humans and to gods. Among humans, he first entrusted them to Mahakashyapa, whom he installed as a regent. And among non-humans, he entrusted them to the 4 great kings, who thus became protectors of Buddhism. And so in this way, it is from the time of the Buddha that there began a custom of entrusting the teachings to both humans and non-humans.
나한테는 미세도 다리 치링만 나 인고만 아주 치링만 토마츠베 걸레 조디 인겨지 땡가를 미치기 지 양시 아 다들 양시 가르래 주제 뉴스차 대체도 아주 중요하네. 다리에 있는 양결 아니 양시 뉴스적이 레도 아주 중요해.
Last year, when we first held the Tseringma Puja, one reason for holding it was in particular so that the rebirth of Kyabje Tenga Rinpoche would swiftly arrive and swiftly come. And again, we are also holding it for the same purpose of the reincarnation of Kyabje Tenga Rinpoche swiftly arriving.
나니 그돌이야. 그러다 semge chorwe gyu sungduwa an di katolia dudu shun tamaj di chima shun zhengmen ro samchangdu chanju semge chorwe gyu ni de member chorwe gyu de jubo chorwe gyu tela dambo ne semge le bangwa da nabel chi shi de bada midin bi semge be choros.
The causes of losing bodhicitta, at this point it now talks about the causes for losing bodhicitta. And so it says here, the causes of losing bodhicitta are twofold, the causes for losing the aspirational and the causes for losing the engaged bodhicitta.
Domba chorwe gyu telaya 다 멤버처리 규지다 주거처리 규지 넘버 2예서 안에 멤버처리 규텔이야 넘버 3 송이 말해.
And so this is saying that the causes for losing bodhicitta are twofold. They're the causes for losing aspirational bodhicitta and the causes for losing engaged bodhicitta. The causes for losing aspirational bodhicitta are threefold.
다 될래요. 다 통마 당부디 심지를 방어의 샤나임bre.
The first of these is giving up on sentient beings.
디나 타게 나로네 심지 르방 랍저 시아나 네네 저주스 뭐 켈레반 신도 밑에 데스 베나 부지부세네 부이제 소바시노 제제 다 셰브네 다 숨보다 부지기여도 파세 엔디기베 가주르다 고랑기 잘라데디바 사는 냐데버는 시레스.
The causes for this giving up on sentient beings is described as in the jewel Ornament of Liberation. It says here that if you have a single child and you kill that child and then keep their things, it is similar to doing that.
다가나 심지를 믿어만 사데 안 자주 심베기 가주에 랍자세난라도 다 고랑 탐제세난라도 계시슈디 이메
Not giving up on any sentient being is the most important precept or the most important commitment of the Bodhisattva vow.
다 teleyam 아니 현대 가수에 디비 준센데야 아니 전주 선바데 조 현대 샤데 아니 전주 선베 고랑기 게르 주심베레 드린 주산다 디 준셀데네 아니 심질로 미도야데 아니 장게 심질로 땅라 아니 현대 주하메비 주산에 다디 준셀데네 다 심질로 미도와사데 아니 전주 선베기다 숭저세나다도 다 탐지스네다도 다 계시슈디 이스라엘.
The reason for this is that the responsibility of a bodhisattva is to bring benefit to others. And so for that reason, they must not give up on other sentient beings. If you give up on any sentient being, then you do not bring benefit to others. And so therefore, not giving up on sentient beings is therefore the greatest precept or the greatest vow of the bodhisattva.
다들이야 심지 르 땅와 시드산다 다 르 땅에 체르지 샤비나 안 카데르슬라비미나.
So what is the limit or the threshold for giving up on a sentient being?
다디 자게르 고민도 쓰부다 내드 견쇼 신스레 我这边束手无策哎，没办法。다들이야 다다디 계시 보도에게 수분에 소아지 아주디 람드응기 제바 계속 시바 타고도 좀 제샤바 티나로래야 롱타나마 샤바티 대지마 쇼이.
There is a quotation from Potoa that is cited in the commentary on the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment by the fourth Gyaltsab Rinpoche Drapa Dundrup, and I shall now explain that citation.
안다디 담보 기시 보도에게 숭 더더 람드른 데바날 제 기습 루치 람드른 데바날 차샤버디마 시기.
But first, there are different ways that the various Kadampa masters describe this. In actuality, in terms of the meaning, there's no real difference. But in terms of the phrasing, in terms of the words used, there are some differences. So first I will explain explain Potoa's position as described in the commentary on the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment by Gyaltsab Rinpoche.
보도에 관해 손도 사나 심지를 당왔어야 돼. 심지 강하로워질. 균제 강로질에 때네. 아니 수sem 마랑체. 셈 이 말한 것들 때네 아니 샤사다 닌지 대화지 차소나 아니 심지를 당한 인수.
Potoa says that for any one sentient being, if we get angry at that, if for any particular reason, we get annoyed with another sentient being. And because of being annoyed with that being, we then lose our affection and compassion for that being. Then that is giving up on a sentient being.
배는 직된바디서 추보 개배 걸려야 직된바디서 직 추보 쇼वे 걸려야 아는 계제 가르치 있잖아. 어다 켜다 니니 수배 내가라 배 가르쳐야지. 수행하고미지 시투고미지 계제 쉐어로다. 다디 가르쳐 버렸으나 수배 내가라 배 하카가 인스 시외 내가라 배지 로베세기 배 가르쳐야지. tur robe segi ene saja de be kaga insaruchi ta kanang rani 시준 가르쳐비는 이니 튼타 메사르 근데 기제 시그레스 지dem바디스 오 되는 신기 다도나 지 버르보텔레아지 샤선인지다 태워를 차지 아주 소수기 파펜 토하기 고급다 뒤주 충분히 미냐 펜 가수래 떡미 삼바르지 펜미다 떡미 삼바르지다 안 다나신 홀리아지 그 균세아기 가지고 콜레 균세아기 균다 파르제 이제 충분히 있는 디세아기 누밤 고급 예비네 균세긴 균다 파르제는 도미 삼바르고 근데 그 삼모 고소나 안디 심절로 나와 있어.
It's like sometimes when we have conflicts or fights in the world, in worldly, in society, sometimes people will say to each other, you and I, there's no other way that we can be together in life, we cannot be together in death either. And so what this is saying is that there's no way we can be, that two people can be together. When we're living, we have to be apart from each other. And even after death, we have to be buried in separate graveyards or separate cemeteries in different places. And what essentially this is meaning is that there's no way that we can get along. And so it's similar to that. If we lose our affection or lose our compassion for some other sentient being, and even if we have the opportunity or the occasion when we can help that sentient being, if we think to ourselves, I'm not going to help that sentient being, then that is giving up on a sentient being. Furthermore, if that other person is affected by some sort of a problem, some sort of a difficulty or an impediment, we have the ability, we have the opportunity to avert that difficulty or impediment, and yet we do not, then that is giving up on a sentient being.
되네. 다들 되네. 까다면 계신이 구제 숨게 나는다. 기시 부중호에게 숨 내래 숨으래 숨하지. 다다디 두거가 유기 컴주 군지 숨바. 공가딘진기 차진 원주치 공기 무시티지다 원주티지 야래 개보슈셔래 원주티 개보지라 무시티 개보셔래 제가 원주티 개보주인 디나로래야 기시 부중원들의 손을 제 농차야래 되지 마시고인.
There is also the way that it was described by the Kadampa spiritual master Puchungwa. This appears in a text on the Mahamudra preliminaries that was written by the third Kamtul Rinpoche, Kunga Tenzing, from the Drupakaju lineage. He wrote long teachings on both the preliminaries and on the actual practices. This appears in the preliminary teachings. In the teachings on his explanation of the preliminaries. And so he gives a citation there from Puchungwa explaining what his position.
나 공기 가르쳐서나 나 차긴 심절로 당와사들이야. 차긴 숨 좀나. 아니디 가르쳐 차긴 숨 좀네. 엔티 동에. 가르쳐다. 공기 가르쳐서나 심제 버르보데 동해와 이인데 버시 동해가 나는 취되비시 ane tela yang gwengyab shen mebachi. Ta tela gwengyab che dengi juyebi ina, kwa negab tela ya roba ma chebi ine, ta kwa gwengyab che dengi juyeba tong san, tong ne, kwa ta jik tada roba chengi jidu, nye roba ma che na jisare, samsaro chik samtangba ina, desam shik samje lue bangwa chaga ma res. Ina ya, paribudu dungyawa inba kanshi jili ya, ti tingdo gwenda gyab me debiche. Tene, ti tingdo rangla ya, dungya tele gyabe nuba. Ya mebe ina, anta tabshis ke omaro. Ina ya rangla dungya tele gyabe nuba, yuyabache. Tenjewe chagen sun zomne, tandungya paribudu dungya le gyabar machebe inbina, ane simje lue bangwa chandu reso.
Puchungwa said that there are three criteria that, for giving up on sentient beings. The first is that the other sentient being has to be suffering. They have to be immersed in suffering or engaged in suffering. The second is that there's no other person to protect them, no other person to save them. So when saying that suffering, that means that there's a position where they need to be helped. The second criteria is that there's no one else to protect them, no one else to save them. If there is someone else to save them or rescue them, and another person who can help them, if at that point you do not help that other sentient being, then that is not giving up on that sentient being. So someone who is in suffering and in need of help, someone who does not have any other protector, anyone else to save them. And then in addition to that, if you have the ability to protect them from the suffering, if you don't have the ability to protect them from the suffering, there's nothing you can do about it. But if you don't and you still do not help them, then if these three criteria are met and you do not try to help or protect or save that other sentient being, then this is giving up on a sentient being.
다드네 예시 쟁아외 양 군지 숨기나네 쟁아외 가르송을 쓰나 냠바케다 때네 미쳐 냠바디 제 가서 심질로 당와인 소 다간다 베닝 타바네 아다 교랑 민인케다 사바르가 다지 미르지기나 미질이야 다 교랑 민인케다 니니베 자완니네 다 단에 송데 나라니베 가서지기 최야세나 최버스도 로튀야로 지다 직 베지 나라니 지 찬지야로 자네 메시지 타바네베 텐 샤비나 아니 가서에 디길로 당인 소네
What Geshe-wa Chengawa said is that if you say, there's no way that a scoundrel like you and I can ever get along. In other words, if from now on you think that you scoundrel, so that other person, you think of them as a scoundrel, and you think that there is no way that from now on you will ever be able to get along, that you will ever be able to be in harmony, that you'll ever be able to reconcile. If you think in that way, then that is giving up on sentient beings.
전에 sembachibu shunu geshogi sembachibu shunu geshosana da ngore kunjo sungim bangsana dagore ta done di yang kadambe jigi kadambe da gaju dinzi chadi yore maji jerumbuji lomai chadi yore jesongba chimbe lomai chadi yore kongi lamdrengi chaju lamdrengi dejen yore 바지 청주 남정기 제바 표기 제베 나는데 예슈를 또 자디 유스래 디 나로라야 아니 심지르 땅 고아디 고알랜다는 그리 송요라서나 시글서버 시나야 시 냠바디 아니 가조에 심지르 땅아래서 다 식사디 마시 직전에 강주 망부지 신기 말이야 아주 순순가리야 식망보여 식도 소마사리 식나고지제 소마스도 가고지 디부들이야 소마스거래 다 식사 소마사리 주주심지로와 무충중지로와 식다 신나야 시 거다 개 말에 사람도 저러다 콜리아 베지 코란 채소 예배기에 통으로 마셔지 거다 식다 식으로 와서 서로 제가 세잖아 아니디 심지어 당화레스 간다라 지동매 채소를 베린당 마셔지 에너지 디둘이야 sem roa shin di du le zguru ma che che de che che be ke ru se sha bi na ani sim ju le ta wa re so
The Kadampa master, a master of the Kadampa lineage named Shunu Gyechok, he's also known as Kunchok Sombang. He was a student of Tsongkhapa, the great Lord Tsongkhapa. He's known for having written the longest commentary on the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan. And in this commentary, what he describes as giving up, as the understanding of giving up on sentient beings, is when you say, like, a louse is just a louse, and who cares if it dies? It's like a louse. Maybe you don't know what lice are, but there are lice, and then there are their offspring, which are nits. And if you have nits and lice, and if you think they're tiny sentient beings, they're small insects, and if you think they're not important, if you think their lives are not important, then that is giving up a sentient being. If you think it doesn't matter if this louse lives or not, and you kill it, then that is giving up on the sentient being. This is not valuing this other sentient beings, even just a bug's life. It is not considering their pleasures and pain, and ignoring them. That is the level of giving up on a sentient being.
Langchen chao yin bi gyunzen dene ko za che cha ane chi shik chung yin du san an ko chi ka zhe ko nyum ju nyu me ru cha che ko ka zhe ke chu ju cha ra ke yo ma des
If you have a louse and an elephant, there's a difference in their bodily size, but there's no difference in their life. The elephant, because the elephant is large, does not make it more important. Just because the louse is small and because it is unable to do much and powerless does not make it less important.
Dandona, Gadambi, Gershine, Namdita Shizu, Tsigi, Kebar, this Madame on the order, turned it to what Sha. That time is part to Dom Gem Shivina. And Taburum Chigi, Tabu Tagin Nalolea, Karasunarisana, Simji Lutan was sad, Simji Tamji Lutan Ku mess. Luton Mesta, Simji Tamji Lutana, Simji Lutan in Barwa. In a Simji Tamji Lutan was sad, Gombures. Come diligent, Simji Lutan was sad, Simji Lutan Bine, Simji Lutan is. 다들 뢰 당와사데 가르사나 심진 지금 연체래야 에너지 콜레베 샤자다 닌지 양아 된대지 매 가서 제외 토네 닌 타고네 어다 콜레지 팬도 다기베 팬도 자 고급 준비네 팬 따금이 다는 신기 뇌발레 도야 지 가서래 강에레 세아기 고급 총부임이네야 강에레 세기 민세제 니 타반에 니 전소나 나도 신줄을 당하래서
So the Kadampa masters, in explaining this, phrase it differently. The words are slightly different, but the meaning is all the same. So it's described in the jewel ornament. It says, giving up on sentient beings is not giving up on all sentient beings. Even if you, it's giving up on any sentient being, not necessarily all. It's very rare to give up on all sentient beings. And so here, giving up on sentient beings means that if you give up on any one sentient being, that is giving up on sentient beings. So giving up giving up here means that for one or more sentient beings, if you lose your affection, if you lose your compassion for that sentient being, and you think to yourself that from now on, even if you have the opportunity to help that sentient being, if you think, I shall not help that sentient being, even if you have the opportunity to avert danger for that sentient being and you do not, and you think you shall not do it, that is giving up on a sentient being.
And Danashi Ranila never chebe simje lemedon chiche. And Dana Shingi Jigi, Musube, Dungegi not Devi simje lemedon. Dungeda, Dungegi Gui, Dunge, Jubu Dunge, the tea Gui, Jita, Kuniyom was somewhere that Tigi, the good Cindy Begi, and simje lemedon chiche. Yawa Sum Chena in that.
With this in mind, Atisha said that for not giving up on sentient beings, there are three types of not giving up on sentient beings. The first is not giving up on those beings who help you. The second is not giving up on those beings who harm you. And the third is not giving up on those beings who are actually experiencing suffering. This means those who are not experiencing suffering, which is the result, or not experiencing its cause, which are the afflictions. We're not caught up by the afflictions. So these are the three different types of not giving up on sentient beings.
O Korantin Diego Tone, some dance, and Lermadon, it is Lela Bruce. That never there, Rana never singing is simply Lermadon, this Galahashadi.
The first of these, not giving up on beings who help you, is easy. If there's someone who helps you, and then out of gratitude, remembering their kindness and having gratitude for them, it's easy then to think that you shall not give up on that sentient being. The second, not giving up on those who harm you, is much more difficult. Joje Antisha said that this is because of not taking ownership of your actions, of your karma. It is if you have done something harmful to someone in the past, then the result of this, full ripening of this, is that they do something in return to harm you. That is thinking in that way. But this is not always so easy. This only works if you believe in karmic cause and effect.
Tandona, 아주 답답치 삼담이미나. 라는 never changing a joti nea. 라는 never cheve chane. 가르쳐다. 야보다 말해. 야보다 말해도 이미네야. 다지. 이나 라는 never jo이 매 chane. 코야 코 디두고 처음에 차려요 말와. 드린 주산에 나는 never changing jo이 nea. 코 디두고 처이 거라시. 고라이네야 지기 가르쳐 대화 된대요. 동해 된대요. 다들 지기 버려. 단도 대화 된대다 동해 된대요. 고라 로 가르쳐지 고란 딜리아 베지 가르쳐 고란 박사로 전부 잡에 인사 안 되게 배지 주내봐 지기 기로 받아. 스스로 드린 주산에 다 뒤균전을 되네 다 런이를 내가 제배 차네 다고 콜리아다지 꾼도 되나 저기 알아대 임비냐 지당 미코랑이 뭐는 셰비미나 다 동이네야 코랑지 대화된데 임바도 동에 전도에 같이 시제기 간다라 코랑 가르쳐다지 시제 차네 앵고 미젠더지 샤지 미임바다지 심진임베게 제일바 샤지 엔델레아베 지구르당 베 시제기 통로지도 지구르때 말아버셔 과데 계속 있어요.
An easy way to think of that is when there is an opponent who is harming you, then in terms of harming you, then that of course is not good. But just by merely being your opponent who is harming you does not mean that they lose their feelings of pleasure and pain. They're still human. They may be harming you, but they still want to experience pleasure and want to be free of pain. They're the same as wanting to be happy and not wanting pain. And so, in terms of, and it is because of this and because of the strength of that desire that they are causing harm to ourselves. And so, for that reason, it's fine to think that they have a problem in terms of causing harm to ourselves. That's fine. But they're still human. They're still the same. They still want to be happy and they still want to be free of suffering. So fundamentally, it is important that we do not lose our sense of valuing them or respecting them as being human and as being sentient beings.
다전에 숨바디 동해다 대규 동해다 동해기 규다 잡을래 가서 동해에 심전다 대규 규라네데 버리 로미가 사디라 다 여러 니체제 다 주부 동해기 나서지 가서 주부 동해기 바 납데 버리 통배 크돌리아 아니 니지 심보게네 심절로 다요 말레스 다시 주산다지 배 무슨 동해기 지부 지가 나대버지 주부 동해기 나대버지 두 통연 주산데 이들이야지 수집에 이제 동해 텔레차와지 초 동해 스머베 텔레차와지 저는 찌머로냐 바로 진짜지기 거는 배 가서다지 심설라 매버지 계시 얘도는 안다 펜도 강도자 두스도
The third type of not giving up on sentient beings is not giving up on those sentient beings who are suffering or who are under the control of it, the cause of suffering. So when we see, and so in this way, there are two different types. There's not giving up on sentient beings who are suffering, and not giving up on sentient beings who are afflicted by the causes of suffering. So the first of these is easy. When we see those sentient beings who are experiencing the result of suffering, we feel great compassion for them, and therefore we do not give up on them. When we see these sentient beings who are actually experiencing the result of suffering, then we have this feeling that we want to free them from suffering. We think, what would be wrong with them being free of suffering? And then, because of that, we feel unbearable compassion and do whatever we are able to benefit them.
다드네 딱 심지에 가시 지 동해기 규다 든들이야지 이제 내가 영문 말씀으로 동해기 규리야 내도 근데 통백거들이야 아니 참배기 셈께네 대관을 넣으면 동안 저고래서 다 동해매배지 대화 근데지 다 대나 지모롱 삼바로 되게 가르라다지 셈로 깨지 근데 관에는 심절로 다요 말했어.
Likewise, when we see beings who are involved in the causes of suffering, karma and the afflictions, then we should feel great loving kindness for them. And by seeing that, then we should have the thought, may they be happy and have the causes of happiness that is free of all suffering. What would be wrong if they were happy? And developing that attitude, then we do not give up on those sentient beings.
어다 드린 인주산은 다 대균스 되네 심지 르면 원아 사디 다 전주선버지주기 배 로종 차게 좀 샤디 어래 아니 드린 인주산에 대균스 되네 다르데 멤버 심게기 랍제난다 당부디 심지 르면 원아 사디 샤나이브다.
Thus, not giving up on sentient beings is the most important training or mind training for bodhisattvas. And so therefore it is presented first among the precepts of aspirational bodhicitta.
단도나 예 가져래 반에 뒤숨 캠베기 가르송으로서나 랑 류롱줄에 내게 교화면 현재수지마 다 심지 르면 원사 간데서나 랑 류롱줄에 내게 현라 내게 교화면 현재수지마 시제 간다지 수수기 류당 롱줄이야 안다 간다 가수에지 네바 즉 가수에다지 this new 용구예비네야 델레야지 강에 라 마지비체체 앤 단동이네야 앤 뉴제 즉 심진 현리야 즉 무투이네 즉 펜토치아당 제수즈바차 딜리 샤비나 앤 즉 심진 르미동사지 용구레스 다들 인두산다 델레야고 닝도고도와 데지 수수기 랑든 르 중세바 르 당체 아니 현대 풀도 렘바를 지내 중나 아니 심리 렘이 동사도 용어를 마다비 란데 참모자베 즉 가르로에 즉 쇼도는 제비입니다 안다 깔아가고 싶잖아 수수기 개변디 셴변 주야래 수수기 개변 주야데 개체 제잖아 네 심리 렘이 동사도 용어데 깔아가고 싶잖아 드린 유산 디균선 되네 심리 렘이 원어를 잡아라 란드 침뷰지 가르르다 배 차상로 당마토네 란드 침뷰 당토버시 버지 고래 데 란드 침뷰 당토는 안에 신의 지심을 메봉하사지 버지 용하게 저요래
What Dusum Kempa said is that even if there is someone who is going to do something harmful to either your body or your possessions, if you, without any despair, if you then care for that sentient being. And so even if someone is going to do something that's harmful for you or harmful to your possession, that'll impair you in some way or impair your possessions, if you, without any despair or without any sadness, if you then continue to care for that sentient being, and to help that sentient being, that is not giving up. So when there is someone else who is going to harm your body or your possessions, if you have a lot of attachment to these, then it is difficult to do this. But if you are able to continue benefiting the other sentient beings and continue accepting and taking care of them, then that is not giving up on other sentient beings. You need a bit of courage in order to do this. It means that you have to let go of your own needs, let go of your own benefit, and put others' benefit first. If you have really strong clinging to your own needs and ends, then this is very difficult to do. So if you consider your own benefit, your own profit to be more important than benefit or profit for other sentient beings, then it's difficult not to give up on other sentient beings. So in order not to give up on other sentient beings, you have to loosen your clinging to your own aims, and if not completely, then at least a little bit, And then, only then, do you have some help of not giving up on other sentient beings.
다들이야 배를 샤비미나 저도 가담배 러브리드 주나로래 배크리 샤나 어르스나 배나 강바질 메쇼이미나 에 강바티나는 메쇼이르서 소수익이 낭로질이야 에 강바들 메쇼르르서 메쇼와데 수수 통르서 람상 배직 가르쳐다지 나라로 라지 수수 짜체 람상 치료래야 가르쳐 배로 알았어 에 배네 강바 예지디 엔다 고에 템바사지 때 배를 기지어로 템바스다 다 고에 템바디 강바 예지 고에 템베 치료라 샤 아니 강바 예지 고에 템베기 가르쳐 치료라 찍 샤사르체 찍디 마샤 버루텔이야 오다 아라지보 되는 데서에 단동야 신다 예삼체 엔고야 치료 geb체 엔 너무 신다도 자과 용레스 오다 드린 주산에 기부 담바사디 가르쳐 기부 침보사기 삼바디 드리지고 아레스 간바 예지 다치 수수체도 변한 그래스다 간바 예지 수수체도 변 간바 예지디 미신다가 체도 샤고레스 드린 주산다 그 다기고 간바 예지디 그 템베치로 친사로 다디 수수 짜네 매쇼 통인데 남사 짜네 배 배주고 봐 수수 숨겹치 하셔 그래서 간바 예지 치료 뼈사 이내 간바 예지디 마베 공리야 아니 심진 시엔데서 체 대테네 고치러 줘 봐. 그래서 디소를 제자 간다. 다배 현dim 버시 있어야 돼. 깔아하고 싶지. 저주서 뭐 첨부도 좀 하다 배 나란주다가 가주다지 나란주다지 다다 배 가주에 다 란진지 다지 등진 첨부여야 돼 봐. 랑 아주 소리서데 현dim 버시 있어야 돼. 저도 깔아하고 싶지. ane train jusane 다지 가서 투도를 다니 세븐은 신기 다시 냠바사 삼단에 아무도 지 수술을 되도록 좋아해 이해서 안 수술 계신 분이면 신기 심지어 신다이나 되도록 좋아해 왜 차네 아 참말로 지교래 계시 좀 지버래 그래서 디균전 때네 네 현대라는 자체인 삼당모도네 아 지부인 삼당하기 다 당투야지 매주 체과하게 계십니다.
The analogy given by many Kadampa masters in their teachings on the stages of the path, it's like if you're in a house that catches fire. Immediately when you see the house catching fire, you want to flee. You see the fire, it's like your family home, and you see that it catches fire. You immediately panic. You see the flames and you panic, and you want to get out, so you run out, you flee. When you get to the door, you put one foot outside the threshold. But before you step with your other foot is still inside the threshold, so one foot you've already stepped outside. The other foot is still inside the threshold, and you think, oh, I can't do it alone. All my loved ones are inside. And so we return inside. And so it's like this. You can't just think, you don't think it's just me alone. There are others, and I need to return and protect them. It's similar with the great sentient beings. It's the same way. They're taking a step, moving one foot outside for your own sake, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Of course, we all need to protect ourselves. But when we've taken the step out of fear, we're trying to flee. So having done that one step outside is not bad. But with the other, if we remember the others, and then we return inside and try to protect the others. So that's the way we need to think. It's difficult for people such as us to only think about the needs, only think about the benefit of other sentient beings. Only great bodhisattvas are able to do this. We still cherish ourselves. We still have great clinging to our great ego clinging, and so it's extremely difficult for us to only work for the benefit of other sentient beings. So what we need to do is we need to do whatever we can to develop the attitude that we and other sentient beings are equal, that we're the same. Just as we are important because we have feelings of pleasure and pain, in the same way, Other sentient beings also have these sensations of pleasure and pain. And in this respect, they are equally important because they also have these sensations. So even if we cannot consider other beings as being more important than ourselves, it is important for us to at least make efforts to see them as being the same.